Hello friends and welcome to episode 14 of InsurTech Talk by InsurTechLA. My name is Gilad Shai and in this episode I have the pleasure to talk with Ben Munro, the CEO and co-founder of Briza. We talked about Briza, SMB insurance, entrepreneurship, providing value to carriers and agents, and Lord of the Rings. Please join my conversation with Ben Munro. Hi Ben, thank you very much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much for having me. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you for the invite.
It's my pleasure, especially when having a person like yourself with your background in insurance, and especially the fact that from such a rich background, you step into entrepreneurship and built a new insurance company. Sorry, not an insurance company, but actually, do you mind explaining what are you guys doing?
Sure. Yeah, I can maybe start from the beginning, give a little bit of my own history and how we came to where we are today. So like you said, I've spent my career in insurance. I started working with Chubb in Canada straight out of university and spent about 5 years with Chubb and then got poached by AIG down to Bermuda. Spent 15 years or thereabouts in Bermuda working for AIG and Markel, mainly in large account insurance, underwriting and leading underwriting teams. And in that time, I have a very good friend who ended up being my partner in this endeavor, a guy named Mike McDermott, who, while I was going through my career in insurance, he was building a company in technology. So he's built a cloud accounting software business that caters to small businesses, uses technology to solve problems for small businesses. And we are good friends, and over time would have conversations about business and insurance and his business and technology and how technology could be applied to insurance. It's no secret that as an industry, we do a fairly poor job of solving the needs of small businesses. And so I think we saw some of the trends happening in the industry, automated underwriting models becoming available through APIs at different insurance companies, and really thought that a sea change was brewing and that we would have an ability with this new technology to really dramatically improve the experience of small businesses when they go to buy insurance, but also the economics of distribution. And so a couple of years ago, I decided to leave beautiful Bermuda for my hometown of Toronto, and it's minus 6 degrees Celsius outside today. So, I miss Bermuda, particularly on days like today, but I decided to leave that all behind in order to focus on building Briza. What we're doing is making those digital models available as they come to market through API, making those readily available to the universe of developers and to anybody who is really interested in connecting into carriers. So I think if you look at what is happening today, there's a groundswell of movement, but it's still very difficult to tap into those APIs. I think the reason for that is the integrations themselves are difficult. They're hard integrations, but also there's no standards to them. And so, as we know, small commercial insurance, highly fragmented. Each carrier has their own appetite. In order to really build a meaningful experience, you need to do a lot of integrations with a lot of carriers. That's really hard work. It's hard to do the integrations at the beginning, and then it's hard to merge those models and create something that is intuitive and customer friendly. And so that's the work that Briza does. We make that available through a unified API so that developers can tap into one spot and connect to many insurers. That was a bit of a long-winded response.
Well, it's great because basically now I have so many different follow-up questions from the origin of the name of Briza to ask you to actually give a quick explanation, or let's call it what I like to say as insurance 101. Why is it so complicated to underwrite the small business? Why it's been neglected in the past?
It's a good question. Yeah. So I don't actually think it is harder to underwrite small commercial risks as opposed to larger enterprise deals. I think the challenge has always been in the distribution model. And so, if you think about the process that a small business goes through when they have to procure insurance, traditionally, the first step is somebody has imposed an insurance requirement on you. That's typically how a first policy is bought. You go to lease a property and the landlord says, I need your business to have a general liability policy in place before you can take possession. Small business has to figure out then how they can go about buying that insurance. And so the first step in the search is to find an agent. And typically that's going to be a local agent, somebody who you know, or somebody who's referred to you, or somebody who you find on a Google search. Then you're going to have to complete an application form, potentially more than one, depending on how many insurance companies your agent wants to go back to. The agent is taking the time to sit down with you and walk you through the application, and then taking that form and has to extract underwriting information from you and then send it to various different underwriters in order to generate a quote. And that process, I think in the best case scenario, it can be done pretty quickly by a single insurer, but it can take sometimes days. If it's a more complex risk, it can take weeks. So when I first went to procure insurance for Briza, we didn't fit into a regular box as an InsurTech company, and it took me 8 weeks start to finish. It took me 2 weeks just to find an agent that would help us. There's no reason that process needs to take place. I think if you look at the incentive structure of that kind of distribution channel, it took the agent that worked with us hours and hours of time across 6 weeks of their lives to place that policy.
Yep.
All for a commission that ends up being kind of $150 on a $1,000 premium. And so, I think for that reason, it has historically been challenging in a lot of cases for the industry to really focus on small business and deliver an exceptional experience.
So basically, sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was finished the thought.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is that the major problem or the challenge is the agent, that they are the bottleneck, because their operation in that department is limited and it's not efficient. They need to gather the information, then they need to go shopping, and also they need to provide the right advice to the business owner. In this case, it's a small business owner. I know I went through the same process as you did. I was a startup, this is what we do, and basically the broker that worked with me, he went shopping and couldn't find the right product. But I would say this is enough, the one-on-one insurance, which is super important because it builds your product and your offer. Now, to everyone who is going to your website, which is briza.co or .com?
It's briza.com. briza.com, yeah.
They see that you offer your product to carriers, wholesalers, agents. How does it work exactly? And also, you offer sub-appointments.
We can, yes.
Yeah.
So, now you said the agent is the bottleneck. So we think of the agent as essential in the process. And I think that that's the case because the market is so fragmented and complex. I think the issue is, how do you take data in an efficient way and transmit it back to the appropriate place in a way that is quick and efficient and can be done in an economically viable way, an economically attractive way. And I think when you're dealing with paper and scanning and email, that process is very slow. I think that's the real opportunity that APIs afford.
Yep.
So that you can create a bespoke user experience that can, create an application, a set of questions that can be answered in minutes. That data can be transferred instantaneously back to multiple carriers, generate quotes, generate kind of the decision to bind, collect payment, and you can be done in 5 or 6 minutes. And so that same process that takes days or even weeks, when it takes 5 minutes, I think, it delivers an excellent customer experience, but it also makes that agent's expertise and their time worthwhile spending on the project. So when you go to our website, it's true. There are a number of different stakeholders that are very interested in what we're doing. One is the carriers who are coming to market with these automated models and making them available through APIs. And then there are various different stakeholders who are interested in integrating back with those carriers. And that's why we have messages there for wholesalers and technology platforms who are looking to build instant quoting and binding into their platforms. We're very focused today on the independent agent, because the independent agent is kind of the obvious and the most interested, and I think the most in need of the solution that we have. So we give agencies the ability to tap into those carrier integrations in really a simple no-code way that can be completed in a couple of hours. It's really, you take a demo, you receive a couple of DocuSigns, you read through the agreements, you sign an API access agreement. If you need the sub-appointments, we have an insurance agency that can provide those sub-appointments. So one of the complexities in insurance is that not all of the agents that are interested in providing a digital experience to their customers are going to have the appointments with the carriers that we have on the platform. They might have some, but they might not have all. And so our insurance agency kind of smooths that rail. We can provide that sub-appointment where it's needed. If it's not needed, then great, you can use your own appointments. But if you need those appointments, or if you want those appointments, we can provide them as well, just to provide a fuller, broader appetite.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I really like it, because when the whole vision of my, I would say, my startup Bound was about empowering the agents. So while our technology, we coined it as embedded insurance technology. So the agents, the affinity groups don't need to have almost any interaction. It's all about relationship management based on existing appointments. And then click, click, click. Here you have a snippet of code that you just embed in your website, and now your agent can sell direct and all the things behind it. And that empowering tool that is based on the API behind the scenes, right? They have no idea what API is, and they don't need to know what an API is. At the end of the day, the only thing that they need to know that there is a product, there is a threshold, and usually they will not touch it because that commission will be below the threshold. And I love the fact that you took it 2 steps forward in terms of, if you don't have an appointment, we'll get your sub-appointment, and you're basically starting to solve the let's call it the long tail of the agencies, especially the independent, which is starting to provide them with the value. And so where you stand today, how do you approach the clusters? You have all the different agency clusters.
Yeah, it's a good question. So today we are dealing mainly with independent agencies one by one. We certainly open to working with clusters, and if clusters are interested in working with us, we'd be happy to just provide them with the technology and allow them to hook into the APIs of the carriers that they have appointments to, or provide sub-appointments if need be. But today our focus is really on on kind of individual independent agencies. We do have some conversations. There are some wholesalers who are interested in the technology and being able to provide it to their networks of of independent agencies. We haven't focused on clusters yet at this point. Clusters are an interesting phenomenon. It goes to the same problem that we're trying to solve, right? There are many agencies out there with strong capabilities, but the complexity of the appointment process and the need to drive volumes is really a thorn in the side, I think, of a lot of agents. And so the clusters are a great solution for that.
Yeah, it's a solution for a long tail. It's almost close to what we see with digital wholesalers. So are you selling to policyholders or just to...
We don't sell directly to policyholders, no. What we do for retail agents is, for lack of a better term, is we give them a digital storefront. So You can use the Briza Smart Portal as an application form. You can send it as a link to a customer. You can embed it in your website if you like. But really, it's a way for you, once you get on the phone with a small business customer, it's a landscaper, an accountant, or what have you, rather than sending an Accord form for them to fill out that you can then take back to multiple carriers, you can send a link to your Briza Smart Portal, has your logo on it, has all of your contact information throughout, but it is dynamic so that it takes key pieces of information from the customer and then renders a set of questions that is specific to them, has hints throughout to help them through the process. And then it just takes that information and instantaneously sends it via API back to the carriers, generates quotes, and allows you to bind or for your customer to bind, collect payment, and be done with it, all with attribution to your agency.
And that's super important, especially if you can do that after hours or,
24/7.
Yeah. Making money while you're asleep, I would say that's a great value proposition.
I just firmly believe that, a decade from now, the vast majority of small commercial insurance will be procured online. I think the automated underwriting models allow for that to happen. APIs allow for that to happen. I think there are some blockers. I think people have been talking about this idea for quite a while, right? I mean, we've talked about Geico and Progressive, the fact that you've been able to buy auto insurance online for 20 years. You've been able to buy commercial insurance online for a while. Hiscox came to market 10 years ago with a direct portal.
Yep.
I think the problem has always been that because the market is so fragmented, you need to get a lot of carriers into the same spot in order to be able to meet the needs of small business as they arise, right? And if you're a small business, you don't know which carrier's site you need to go to place a BOP for your business as a plumber, or an errors and emissions policy for your business as a software developer. That's why you go to a broker, and that's why brokers are essential. So I think the real blocker has been this problem that the industry is fragmented and it needs to come together into an online standard. And so that's what we're building. And I think that vision, we didn't necessarily have a distribution channel, to your question, except that we thought everything will be digital and online if we can solve this problem.
Yeah, I think that my question was a little bit of mistake in terms of usually it's a startup, an InsurTech who is an agent, so they are licensed, and then they are trying to figure out, can we sell life insurance, commercial insurance, or whatever. And then it's more about, do you have a distribution channel? Because it doesn't make sense that you will become a licensed agent if you don't have the distribution. It's not, there's a big difference if someone is starting, you should be an insurance agent, go to your church, sell everything, go to your community, and then, okay, how do you scale that up?
Right.
Versus,
I think for us, it was a little bit more vague, right? It was this idea that the insurance industry is digitizing.
mm-hmm.
The world is already full of developers, but it is gaining developers by the day. And so we need to create a unified API that pretty much anybody can tap into and access this universal marketplace for small commercial insurance products.
Exactly.
So it wasn't as concrete as I think you're asking. It wasn't like we, had a agency that, this vision to sell. It was more, we need to make a unified API for this. This was an idea that started a number of years back, probably back in 2015, 2016, when we first started hearing about APIs in commercial insurance. So it was something that I thought about for a good number of years before taking the plunge. And I will say, I didn't actually take the plunge until I was confident that I would have at least 2 or 3 insurers who were willing to join us in the journey as partners. And so, I can't rightly with a straight face tell anybody go ahead and do it without having anything lined up, because I myself did wait until I had that. There is this concept when you build a company from the start, and especially when it's a technology company, of why now? Why is the time that this is going to work? And I think it's particularly applicable to us and what we're building, because I do think people have tried this many times, right? I mean, if you look back over the last 20 years, there are, attempts at digital wholesalers, digital retailers. I think the difference today is just in the sheer magnitude of the APIs coming to market. Now, I think if you started this business in 2015 or 2016, like some did, you didn't have APIs to work with. There was no way to connect back into insurers for the most part. And so what you ended up having was a very user-friendly, slick website, very, very nice kind of online experience, but it was really a call center that was trying to fulfill those risk placements as quickly and efficiently as possible. I think today, we're working with a dozen insurers. There are more and more coming to market every day, more that are interested in getting their APIs distributed and made available to retailers and wholesalers and alternative distribution channels. So I think that is as an entrepreneur, if you're thinking about diving in, I would challenge you to look at the why now. Why is now the time for this idea to work? Because it plays an important role.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, I don't want to dive into why carriers need to have an API, because I think that's a subject that we chewed so many times. What does it mean? But let's talk about your investors, or why should someone invest in your company, and where things basically, what's the future? Where's the horizon?
Yeah, sure. So we've been fortunate. I think we've found a great panel of investors, starting with our angel investors. It is a tough process raising money, I will say. And I would encourage anybody who is thinking about the process. One of the great tools that is available to you are all the accelerators out there. I think some are better than others. We were fortunate to be a part of 500 startups this past year in 2019, 2020. And it was just a very positive experience for a number of reasons. But one of the benefits that comes out of those programs, especially, I would assume that there's a spectrum, good and bad. 500 startups I would rave about. They will teach you how to fundraise. And I think when you go about this without that background, it's very easy to try to jump in without really understanding the process and shoot yourself in the foot. I fortunately with my partner Mike, we had a lot of connections. We were able to approach early on in the process before I had gone through the accelerator. And after having gone through the accelerator, I look back on those experiences and I just kind of shake my head. Fundraising is an art that you get better at as you go, and the more times you pitch, the better you will get at it. And so this is again a long-winded answer to you, but I would encourage anybody who's thinking about this, and really if what you're building is going to be a venture-backed endeavor, consider the accelerators very strongly. In terms of where we are today, what's that?
Yeah.
In terms of where we are today, so we're very fortunate. We have a very strong set of angel investors. We've just come through 2 rounds of financing in 2020. So finished up our Series A over the summer with just a phenomenal group, the investment group of Santa Barbara out of California, and just thrilled with where we are. I think you should invest I mean, I'm biased. I'm not looking for additional investors right now. I think the future is bright in this industry. I mean, insurance, commercial insurance, there is just, it is ripe with opportunities to apply technology to improve experiences and to improve economics in the distribution chain and the customer experience. And I'm a believer in APIs. I think that we can just dramatically improve and change the way small commercial insurance is procured throughout the United States. So I think it's a no-brainer investment. I'm a little biased, but I think there's just, the future is just very, very bright.
So recently you raised the round. What was it for?
Sorry, what was the round for?
Yes.
In terms of what are we going to use the money for?
Exactly.
Yeah. So great question. We have a backlog of 30 APIs from different carriers that we need to get integrated. And those integrations are hard work. And so following our seed raise, we hired some talented developers, but we really need to gear up and hire a lot more developers and hire once we get through with the integrations, we're going to need salespeople and we're going to need customer success people. Our focus today is really on building up the development team, the integrations team, and what we call our core API team. And that involves hiring really, really smart, tenacious people, not just in Canada and the United States, but globally. So we have ambitious goals, hiring goals, and pleased to say that we've been hiring at a fair clip, but we've been hiring people from everywhere. We have developers from Brazil, South Africa, Nigeria. We have people in the UK, and obviously Canada and the United States as well.
What's the size of the team?
We're up to about 23, 24. It changes almost weekly. So I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. I think we're at 23 today.
That's impressive. Very impressive. And I love the fact that, as the company progresses, we have the internal KPIs that we are looking for. And then later on communicating it with investors, with the outer world. It's about how many APIs to revenue ratio you actually have. While in the insurance space, we always talk about the combined ratio. And I really wonder if it's something that affects you, especially when you work with the agents and how that direct selling is I would say improves or not improving with that.
Sure.
When we
would say, we're still early stage, and so the exact kind of revenue to API ratios are less important to us. What's more important to us today is that customer experience and what can we see in the data that tells us whether the customers like this product or not, and then what do we have to do to improve it to make sure that they do like it and that we're building to satisfy their needs. So that's, for us, our internal KPIs are all focused on that. It's customer satisfaction, and are we building this in a way that people like it, and what else do we need to do to make sure that they use it and we're satisfying their needs.
That's good. Other things that you measure for traction in customer satisfaction?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to engagement. So, I mean, we know that there's a lot of demand out there from different brokerages for this type of solution. I think more important to us than growing quickly is growing methodically and, measuring when we get those submissions in. Are we able to generate a quote for it? If we're not able to generate a quote for it, do we have carriers in the pipeline that will be able to address that need as they come online? Are we able to provide 2 or 3 or 4 quotes for it? And are our brokerages re-engaging? Are they sending submissions in multiple times per week and per month? Those are the types of things that we're focused on.
Mm-hmm. What would you like to happen next?
I would like more and more development partners. So I think we've shown that we can sign up smaller independent agencies and are starting to get some medium-sized and even some larger agencies. We've built this platform API first, and we want, at the end of the day, I would love to have, we have a few development partners kind of using the API and starting to integrate the API, but I'd love to have more.
Yeah, of course. Ben, now let's take it more to the personal side. We've been stuck in Corona for a while now. Any life hacks that you adopted over time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm stifled by Corona. I have to say. So, I love to travel. My wife and I, before children, traveled regularly. We actually took a year away from work. We've both been working in Bermuda through the financial crisis. I was with AIG through the financial crisis, and my wife was also an underwriter in Bermuda. Left our jobs, picked up, and went traveling for a year to Europe and North Africa, and actually Middle East and Turkey, and then spent a good deal of time in Southeast Asia and India. Just a wonderful year.
I love the fact that it's an entry on your LinkedIn, 2010.
Well, it was one of the highlights. Of my career, for sure. And also, things like ski trips and just traveling it's a big part of our lives, and so it has been difficult during the lockdowns and COVID. I think for me, teaching my kids to play chess. I've got 2 young boys. We play various strategy games, but chess is a big one. So that's just a ton of fun and takes my mind off of the day-to-day of the business.
Ah, that's good. Any recommendation for books or something that we should binge?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you told me at the beginning that you were going to ask me this question, and now I'm drawing a
blank. All my secrets. Come on, man.
I would say, one of the foundational books that, I mean, I love fiction, and so I'd always recommend fiction. But one of the foundational books in terms of how I lead my life and the way I look at different problems is The Intelligent Investor by Ben Graham. So I think anybody who's interested in investing, interested in business in general, that's a great place to start.
Okay. So thank you. That's great. How old are your kids?
6, about to turn 7, and 3.
Okay. Too early. Too young for that. Okay. Never mind. Otherwise, so for other people who are older than 6, although 6 you can start reading The Hobbit. I would highly recommend Terry Pratchett.
So that's interesting that you say that. With my 6-year-old, we're on book 2 of The Lord of the Rings. With the Hobbit, we started with The Hobbit, and now we're on book 2 of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's much easier to start with 300 pages and then move to 900. It's way. So I assume that he already finished all the Harry Potter books.
It's interesting. He's latched on to Narnia, Lord of the Rings, a little bit of Harry Potter, but we've gotten to the Narnias and the Lord of the Rings first.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember that when I read Harry Potter, that was when it was just coming out, and I was in uni, and yeah, it was weeks of sleep that just disappeared and allocated, instead of studying, to reading about this wizard and this magical, never mind. But other recommendation from my side to your kids, Terry Pratchett, although that may be a little bit too soon. You need to develop Terry Pratchett. The name of the author is Terry Pratchett. Okay. Sadly, he passed away from early onset of Alzheimer several years ago. I would say the author that continues his style is Neil Gaiman. But you need to develop a little bit of British sarcastic sense of humor, and from there it will just continue. You can always start with watching, and I think it's Amazon Prime or one of the streaming, The Color of Magic. That will be the first 2 books merged into one movie. But that's a different story altogether.
I'll take the recommendations. My 6-year-old loves books, so thank you.
No, that's a start. Ben, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure, and let's keep in touch. This was fun.